Hey there, this is a part in a series where I talk about my thoughts on various Sonic games. Here's the full list so you're not confused. This one's about Sonic Colors, so let's begin. Sonic Colors is a special game to me, because it was my absolute favourite in the franchise for around 5 to 6 years up until Frontiers' release. If you watched my Learning to Love Sonic video, you will know that I didn't actually grow up playing the Wii version of the game, but I did play the DS version a ton. So even if I never grew up with the game, nostalgia is ever present on any playthrough, so expect maybe a little bias from this video. Outside of that, however, there's a lot to consider when talking about this game, as it is both a super interesting boost game and a boring one at the same time. It simultaneously is a super fun game with really good gameplay, and has some of the strangest decisions out of all of the games with this style. It is truly a fascinating game to talk about, and that's why I wanted to do it so soon. So, without further ado, let's begin talking about Sonic Colors. Before we get to the game itself, there is quite a few elephants in the room we must mention. For this playthrough and my 100% playthrough, I played the game on the most recent release of the game, via Sonic Colors Ultimate.
Fuck you,
Marcor 255.
You're a
Orange.
bitch.
Now wait, give me a sec to explain myself. Yes, I did play the game through the version with the controversy and stuff, and whilst I do mostly agree that it is a pretty bad remaster all things considered, I still use this version the most, all thanks to the ease of accessibility. Even then, in my opinion, there are some areas that look nice anyways, and at the end of the day, I ended up using Project Re-Rainbow mod, which I'll link in the description, that makes the game look significantly better. It did make my game crash, and at times made me incapable of entering certain areas, but it wasn't awful. My rankings are more focused on the story and primarily the gameplay anyways, so yeah. To put it simply, you'll be seeing recordings from the Project Re-Rainbow mod for Sonic Colors Ultimate, except for Terminal Velocity as that was broken on Project Re-Rainbow. Now, we can truly begin. The levels of Sonic Colors are very weird, for the boost games at least. I'm sure you've seen people talk about how this game is more 2D than 3D, and yeah, that's kinda true. I personally wouldn't call this game a 2D game thanks to there being 3D areas and them mattering to the overall level design, but it is indeed a problem at the end of the day. It's not that 2D Sonic is bad, it's really fun when done right, but that balance of 3D and 2D is necessary to make a level feel complete. Another problem is the length. These levels range from 2 to 3 minutes to literally 20 to 30 seconds if you're fast enough, which is quite diabolical and makes a full playthrough last around 3 hours on your first go. This is starting to seem like Sonic Forces, I know, but the difference is that this game has the most amount of boost stages out of all of the other Boost Sonic games. There are 6 acts in each planet, a boss at the end, and 3 final stages in Terminal Velocity, adding up to a total of 39 stages. Outside of the really short ones, I never feel like they end too quickly, and the super short ones are quite fun to replay and optimize thanks to their short length. This game doesn't have any particular stages I'd consider as the best, honestly, but there are some standout ones I'll quickly go over. Tropical Resort Act 1 is an absolute classic. Whilst it is an extremely simple level at its core, it somehow manages to be a blast and one of the most fun stages to replay. There's a ton of exploration here too, which is something Colors experiments with a ton. I should probably also address another elephant in the room: the Wisps. The Wisps seem to get a ton of hate for slowing the gameplay down a ton and not complementing the boost gameplay style at all. Whilst I do agree to a certain extent, there are ones I thoroughly enjoy using, the main ones being Laser, Spike, and Hover. I tolerate Drill, Rocket, and Frenzy, and Cube is fine. I know, you found one of the 3 people who kind of likes Cube. There are places in which I enjoy using it, such as here in Starlight Carnival. Finally, Ghost was added in Colors Ultimate, and they're fine. It's slow and kinda boring after a while, but there are some nice bits with it. So overall, the Wisps are decently fun to me. I don't think they're amazing or anything, but they don't make or break the game at all. Anyways, the Wisp use in this level is quite good, even if it is pretty basic. A really good start to a really good game. Tropical Resort Act 3 is great. It starts off with this cool quick-stepping section with a path that leads to laser. This level introduces drifting, and it's okay. You could probably remove all drifting segments and nothing would change about the game. Aside from that, we've got some good 2D, good 3D, and some good vibes overall. The place where colours shine is the brightest is by far its theming for the levels. I adore the ideas and visuals present in these areas. They set the mood fantastically. Tropical Resort is so unbelievably vibrant and, well, colourful. The name doesn't lie, I guess. At the end of the day, I really enjoy my time at this level. It's one I've played a ton. Sweet Mountain Act 2 is similar to that one bit in Savannah Citadel from Unleashed, and I love it. Speeding around the giant structure in the middle is a blast, and we get some fun use of hover too. The grind down to the bottom at the end is great too. This is an underrated gem of this game. Starlight Carnival Act 1 is good, I think. It's mainly because of the visuals, honestly. This is one of the most visually striking and beautiful areas in the whole franchise. This level takes full advantage of the huge, sprawling environment of space. It's incredible. The gameplay is pretty bare bones, however, with a lot of automated set pieces and segments, a heavy focus on easy quick stepping, and 2D that's kinda boring and uses cube a lot, so yeah. Beautiful level I replay for the set pieces alone, even if the gameplay is kinda nothing, but it means this is one of the longest levels in the game. Yay! Starlight Carnival Act 4 is short, but sweet. The 2D gameplay is pretty damn satisfying, and I like the use of Frenzy here too. Don't have anything else to say thanks to the length, but hey, it's still fun all around. Starlight Carnival Act 5 is great, with fun set pieces at the beginning, fun 2D in the middle, and a great expansive 3D section with hover towards the end. The Wisps are at their best when they let you take huge shortcuts and large alternate routes, and this level makes full advantage of that. You can use Spike to explore areas at the top of the 2D segment, and use hover to lightspeed dash at the higher areas at the end. This level stands out a ton in my mind. It's fantastic. Planet Wisp Act 1 is great. Yeah, it's mostly 2D, but man is it fun. We got the usual bells and whistles, you know, some fun 2D, the good 3D quick-stepping, the like. The ending is also a bit with some good stuff, as in the ultimate version, you can reach the end with either Spike or Ghost. This is something the game should have played more with, letting you reach the main path with multiple different Wisps. It would have added a lot more choice to your playthrough and encouraged replays of the stages even more than they already do, thanks to the focus on exploration some of these have. Overall, not the best Act 1 in this game, but still really damn good. Act 6 of Planet Wisp is probably my favourite in this area, however. It's got some really cool shortcuts, some fun rail grinding, solid shortcuts with hover, and some good combat segments at the end. I like how this section here allows you to get all the enemies super quickly without needing to slow down if you time your homing attacks right. It's really good. It's speed done well in a different, unique way than we're used to in these kinds of Sonic games. Sure, you could argue there's too much waiting in some places, but I don't think it's too bad here. It's a really solid end to the most iconic theme in the game. Real quick, I know this isn't about this game, but Generations visuals for Planet Wisp are some of my favorite in the franchise. Holy shit, it looks stunning. Aquarium Park Act 6 is the only one from this area that I thoroughly enjoy replaying. And even then, that's only when speedrunning, as I hated getting all the red rings, but that's for later. Aquarium Park focuses too much on water in my opinion, so you just move a lot slower than you'd like. This level, however, embraces the slow speed, and gives you the mandatory long water segment at the beginning instead of leaving it for later. I quite like the gameplay at this beginning part here. It's easy to keep aflow, and it's really satisfying to hear the music once you get out. The 3D sections are peak here, however. We got some fun platforming which then changes to multiple different pathways, and they're all great. I love using hover over the bottomless pit especially. We then get a cool combat segment after, even if it goes on for a bit too long. We then end the level in a short but sweet water section, ending off a pretty cool level. I don't think this one's perfect, but it's still a fun one to replay nonetheless. Asteroid Coaster Act 1 is bliss. Aside from the fact that you can't get this Wisp capsule, of course, it pisses me off so much, just get the damn thing! Anyway, this is probably some of the closest this game gets to Unleashed in Generations in terms of game feel, thanks to how fast you're doing inputs here. It's still got the colours vibes though, thanks to a unique take on branching paths. This is also one of the few levels in the game that's barely 2D. You're only in the second dimension for about 20 seconds max. There's also the spectacle aspect of actually riding roller coasters and homing attacking the asteroids. Ah man, it's a banger stage. If there's a stage to try here, it's this one, for certain. Act 3 you can beat in 15 seconds, and that's all the acts in Sonic Colors I have more fun with compared to the others. A lot of the ones I haven't mentioned I at most like, and at worst I think is mid, but of course there are some duds here. For example, Starlight Carnival and Aquarium Park both have these really boring missions where you bounce on this moving spring and it just blows. At least the Starlight Carnival one is more vertical, so you can speed things up a bit there. There's also these more puzzle-like missions in Sweet Mountain and Asteroid Coaster featuring these slow laser beams. They suck too. The fact that the short levels are, well, short, also makes most of those ones pretty mid, and I've already gone over why Aquarium Park as a whole is pretty mid, so yeah. Terminal Velocity is a pretty disappointing finale too, only housing a quick stepping level, the final boss, and a 30-second scripted ending. Overall, whilst I think there are a few levels here that don't work, there's still a ton that do, and I overall have a ton of fun replaying this game nonetheless. Oh yeah, the bosses! This game houses 4 unique themes for the bosses, with 3 of those being reused in later plans for increased difficulty. The big wheel guy is super easy, the pirate dude is probably the best, and the massive ship is kinda boring. There you go. Well, what about the final boss, do I hear you asking? Well, I actually quite like it. I've seen people say that it's bad, and I don't get that, there's some cool stuff here. Eggman uses the Wisp powers we've used the whole game against us in some wacky ways, such as Cube placing blocks in certain patterns, Spike shooting out, well, spikes, and Laser shooting a laser that covers your paths. These attacks get pretty fast late in the fight, and it's a genuine struggle to succeed on a first playthrough. This boss isn't on a crazy spectacle level like the Frontiers bosses and Dark Gaia, but I still have a good time here, so there's that. On to the next section. Out of all of the Sonic games I have 100%ed, those being Frontiers, Shadow Generations, Sonic Generations, Colors, and the classics if you want to count them, I'd definitely say that Colors was another fun one to go through. This game goes about placing its collectibles in a strange way, however, as it's a lot more exploration focused than the usual boost level. For example, let's take Tropical Resort Act 2. Right at the beginning, there's a red ring you can reach by using drill to go straight down into an alternate path. Is this path faster than the main route or one you can take for different scenery? No! This area at the bottom is here purely for exploration purposes, not to improve your time. Some people may dislike this as it makes you slow down to get something that doesn't even help you in the long run, but I think this is a cool and unique way of placing collectibles. It works for this game, but I don't think it'd work for others like Generations for instance. Placing the red rings directly on alternate pathways was a smart choice there, and is probably the best way to go about them. The way this game does it is probably how it should be done in the 2D games if Sonic Team decides to place collectibles around those games. They already do it with Extra Life, Ring, and Shield capsules alongside the big rings in 3 and Knuckles, Mania, and Superstars. So yeah, I had quite a bit of fun finding the red rings in this game, even if a couple were bullshit. The S ranks, however, are a different story. Again, the way you get S ranks in this game is so different to the others. In Unleashed, you can kinda just go fast and use the fast routes to win, even if it's hard as balls, and Generations onwards forgot what challenge means. I mean, Shadow Gens kinda did, but I'm good at that game now, so it doesn't matter. Colors' S ranks are all about the score. Time is basically an afterthought here. To get an S rank, I recommend you take your time, kill as many enemies as possible, get as many red rings as possible, and keep all of your rings. If you get hit even once with a large amount, it's back to square one. In some levels, this is a fun challenge that lets you explore and is super chill and stuff, but in others, my keyboard is in shambles. The short levels become really annoying as you use Wisps to chain enemies, find every nook and cranny you can, and still end up with an A. I'm going to scream. And the longer ones... Aquarium Park Act 6. This one kinda broke me, not gonna lie. Playing through it is all fine and dandy, like I've mentioned, but this all comes crashing down once you realize that the hover section where you get billions of rings is right before the enemy gauntlet at the end of the level. After 3 minutes, maybe even longer if you took your time. This shit's hard as nuts. It's not one of the hardest things in the franchise or anything. I mean, I S-ranked it first try on recording, which was kinda funny, but still, this was brutal. Overall, however, the bonus content is pretty fun to go through. And the supersonic transformation and the Metal Sonic fights that Colors Ultimate brings are inconsequential, yes, but still ultimately nice to have nonetheless. Now, onto the biggest point of contention with this game. Right, so the story of Sonic Colors has been controversial ever since the release, as Sonic Team decided to ditch any semblance of emotional depth and just created a silly, light-hearted story for the kids. This decision plagued the franchise's next few entries, all the way up until Forces, which tried to have emotional depth, but we all know how that went. This decision was controversial ever since it was made, and I definitely am on the side of people who do not like these stories. However, and this is gonna sound absolutely crazy to most people, I don't despise this game's story. Sure, there are some really stupid and dumb things in it, like that mind control beam that Eggman hits Tails with which goes nowhere, but overall, there are interactions I mildly enjoy. A lot of the interactions in this game feel more like chill banter between Sonic and Tails compared to Generations and especially Lost World, where they're always trying to be as wacky and zany as possible. For example, take this scene in Planet Wisp. This scene explains that Planet Wisp has been kidnapped by Eggman, and he's reconstructing it for the sake of his theme park. If this was Lost World, Sonic totally would have made a joke about the situation, Tails would have joined in, and the Wisps would be laughing, making the situation basically non-existent. However, in this game, the characters take the situation kind of seriously. Sonic feels pretty awful towards the Wisps, and feels like he needs to go help them. Plus, there's this chill interaction here.
I'm going to guess it wasn't ice cream shooting out of those generators.
If it was, I would get one for back home.
Dude, I'd get two.
I know this leads on from the not funny jokes from Tails with the poor translations of the Wisp language, but I still like this part. I'm probably in the minority, but there's a decent amount of this throughout the game, and I kind of enjoy it. Of course, however, I can't deny the existence of lines like these.
He says his name is Talks a lot.
That'll be easier. Cheeseburgers don't run as fast as
I'll just stick with aliens if that's okay with everybody.
Idiot.
No copyright war in the universe is going to stop me, Baldy Nosehair.
Which, as you know, is absolute ass. There's definitely more bad than good with the story, but I wouldn't say it was the bottom of the barrel, not at all. Obviously, there's a ton this game could have done to improve the story and all, but for this video, I want to focus on the timing of this game's release. This was the next mainline Sonic game, unless you're me, after Unleashed, which characterized Sonic practically perfectly. Black Knight also came out before this one, and that game has the best Sonic in the entire franchise, but that's for another time. Then we get this game, which dumbs Sonic down to
Baldy Nosehair.
this Sonic and that Sonic are not the same, and going from a Sonic that's down to sacrifice his life just to prove his point of view, to one that makes fun of things generally all the time, kinda blows. This problem really soured the stories of this era, because we went from the best of the best to the worst of the worst. Overall, however, I don't really have any opinions on the story other than the fact that I like some jokes and don't like some jokes. It's just inconsequential and doesn't feel insulting because they didn't try to do something here. They could have tried, yes, but they didn't, and we just gotta deal with that. To end this video on a more positive note, however, let's talk about other miscellaneous stuff that I could not make an entire segment out of. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I absolutely adore the theming of this game. Each area is unique and distinct in their own way, and I love it. Tropical Resort is very busy and lively, fitting a starting area perfectly. Sweet Mountain is deliciously delightful with all the sweets you could ever want. Starlight Carnival has wowed me ever since I was 5. The bright colors of the spaceship contrasting the dark reach of space just works perfectly, man. Planet Wisp is the perfect area to represent the main theme of Sonic that's been around since the very first game, a luscious environment contrasting the metallic robot world. I don't think this area does it as fantastically as other games, but it's still really good here. Aquarium Park's Japanese-inspired architecture paired with the giant dome that permeates over every stage is just a marvel on the eyes. Asteroid Coaster honestly reminds me of Shadow 05 at some points, which is a major compliment as I adore the areas of that game. The green acid is visually striking, and seeing other planets like Saturn in the background is super cool too. Finally, terminal velocity isn't as striking as the other areas, but the vibes are as dire as possible, which I adore. Seeing all the previous areas behind you as you speed down this giant space elevator is just pure bliss. The areas of this game makes this one special and stand out from the already giant selection of unique environments we've had before. Honestly, I think trying out an idea like this where we have so many varied ideas that the devs can just run with should happen again. Imagine Frontiers 2 having as creative areas as this game. I would adore that. Next point is the Ultimate Edition exclusive things, and they're largely inconsequential to be honest. I like being able to customize Sonic in various ways, I think that should be a mainstay honestly, but that's about it. The Metal Sonic races are literally just beat 6 of the game stages with a soft time limit. They're all easy. Use Metal Sonic in a cool way again, Sonic Team, please. Oh wait, they are. I didn't talk about Gameland in the levels segment because I don't care, but it's a decent selection of levels which in the Ultimate version are required to unlock Super Sonic. Super Sonic is always a weird thing in these boost games for me, because it always feels pretty inconsequential. They always leave it as a reward for completing the game. Using it in levels feels like a win button in Colors, Generations, and Lost World. Forces literally made Super Sonic a DLC, which is pretty funny. In the classics, Super Sonic was a reward for going out of your way to challenge yourself, and it felt rewarding to use as the power-ups you're given are significant. In the boost games, you barely ever take touch damage, and you're already super fast thanks to the boost button itself, so what's the point? The final boss is a fine excuse, but for actual levels, there's gotta be something interesting you do with Super Sonic to warrant its inclusion. Okay, did not expect to have that much to say about Super Sonic in Colors Ultimate, so let's move on to the CGI cutscenes. Yeah, this game actually has a complete opening and ending cutscene with beautiful CGI, which is something the later games didn't have. How fun! This opening is something I watched so much when I was younger, on that crusty-ass DS version of course. It shaped who I thought Sonic was back then, and sorta still does today. The ending cutscene is also CGI, and whilst it isn't as striking, it's still super nice to just have one at the end to further heighten the climax. Finally, let's talk about the soundtrack. I'm gonna have a section in each of these videos where I hit the jukebox and play a variety of songs from the game. This game's soundtrack is a really good one, even if there aren't many unique level themes as there are always 3 remixes of the main one. Now before you ask, no, I'm not going to cover Colors Ultimate's OST. I've listened to some good remixes from there, sure, but I'm comfortable with the OG Colors tunes, so let's hit it! Reach for the Stars is one of the best main themes for any Sonic game out there. It's a masterpiece.
I'm gonna reach for the stars, although they look pretty far.
Tropical Resort is upbeat and chill, setting the vibes perfectly. Sweet Mountain is jazzy and cool, a song I have a ton of memories with. Starlight Carnival is wondrous and magical, fitting the location fantastically. Planet Wisp is probably the best level theme, as you all know. Aquarium Park fits the Japanese vibes amazingly with some fantastic drops. Asteroid Coaster is a rocking tune, with parts only dreams are made of. Finally, Terminal Velocity is damn underrated, further adding to the dangerous mood of the location. Yeah, there's some great stuff here, even with the low amount of variety. That's about everything I have to say about Sonic Colors, so let's end this. Sonic Colors is definitely not a bad game. Whilst it never reaches the same heights as Unleashed or Generations, it still holds a special place in my heart for being the first Sonic game I ever really saw. Whilst some parts don't really hold up today, others do, and I'm just happy that I still enjoy this childhood game whilst removing my nostalgia from the experience. I would absolutely recommend you getting this game on a sale if you can, as it can be a blast if you go about it right. As long as you don't consider it the beginning of the bastardization of the characters too, you could probably tolerate the story as well. Well, that's another game down. I apologize if you expected another hour-and-a-half analysis. I just had a lot more to say about Forces than this one, but oh well. It means I got this out much faster. See you in the next one, which will be the first episode of this series about a 2D Sonic game. See you then, goodbye.